Naram chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato jayam diraye Nashkaishva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishne Swadama Pagate Dharma Jnana Divisaha Nashta Trisham Resha Puranarko Gunodhitaha. So today we're reading from Canto 9, Chapter 4, Text 65. The chapter is entitled Ambarish Maharaj Offended by Durvasa Muni. Great verse. Ye Zaragara Putrasta Ye Daragara Putrapta Pranan Vittamimam Param Vidvamam Sharanam Yata Vidvamam Sharanam Yata Katham Tam Tyaktum Utsahe Ye Daragara Putrapta Pranan Vittamimam Param Vidvamam Sharanam Yata Tam Tyaktum Utsahe
Ye Daragara Putrapta Pranam Vittamimam Param Vidvamam Sharanam Yata Katam Tam Tyaktum Utsahe
Those devotees of mine who Dara, wife, Dara, house, Putra, children, sons, Putra, children and sons, after, relatives and society, Prana, even life, Vittam, wealth,
Imam,
all these, Param, elevation to the heavenly planets, becoming one by merging into Brahman. Hitva, giving up all these ambitions and paraphernalia. Mam, unto me, Sharanam, shelter, Yataha, having taken, Katham, how, Tan, such persons, Yaktum, to give them up, would say, I can be enthusiastic in that way. It is not possible. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Since pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives simply to serve me, without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next, how can I give up such devotees at any time? Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by the words Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Hitaya Cha. Thus he is the well-wisher of the Brahmanas. Durvasa Muni was certainly a very great Brahmana, but because he was a non-devotee, he could not sacrifice everything in devotional service. Great mystic yogis are actually self-interested. The proof is that when Durvasa Muni created a demon to kill Maharaj Ambarish, the king stayed fixed in his place, praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and depending solely and wholly on him. Whereas when Durvasa Muni was chased by the Sudarshan Chakra, by the supreme will of the Lord, he was so perturbed that he fled all over the world and tried to take shelter in every nook and corner of the universe. At last, in fear of his life, he approached Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was so interested in his own body that he wanted to kill the body of a Vaishnava. Therefore, he did not have very good intelligence. And how can an unintelligent person be delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The Lord certainly tries to give all protection to his devotees who have given up everything for the sake of serving him. Another point in this verse is that attachment to Dara Gara Putrapta, home, wife, children, friendship, society and love, is not the way to achieve the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to hearth and home for material pleasure cannot become a pure devotee. Sometimes a pure devotee may have a habit or attraction for wife, children and home, but at the same time want to serve the Supreme Lord to the best of his ability. For such a devotee, the Lord makes a special arrangement to take away the objects of his false attachment and thus free him from attachment to wife, home, children, friends, and so on. This is special mercy bestowed upon the devotee to bring him back home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Jnana Timiram Nasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha. So I seek the blessings of the senior devotees present so that I may say something that will be suitable for discussing the Bhagavatam. This is a very interesting chapter of the Bhagavatam. It's a very favorite pastime, very much a favorite pastime of devotees, to discuss the story of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni. To discuss the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni. It's a very nice pastime because it displays how certain individuals take great shelter of the Supreme Lord and others, I don't think it's working properly. There's a break in the cable somewhere. Yeah. How some devotees take shelter of the Supreme Lord and others depend on their own skills, their own efforts, and even sometimes try to go against the order of the Supreme Lord. So this is a verse which can appear shocking to some persons, but is nectarian for the pure devotees of the Lord. After all, who in the material world wants to hear that it is desirable to give up home, wife, children, relatives, and riches? No one likes this. Right? If we advertise this on the, say you're doing an interview on the radio and you declare to everyone, the way for everyone to be happy is to give up their home, wife, children, work, you will not get much of a following. You will have protests. This is because individuals do not understand how to apply this, and they're also so engrossed in material life, materialistic endeavor, that they do not think there is anything higher than what they're used to. Throughout our lives, we have been trained, systematically trained, that success in life means you study while you're young, then you work hard as soon as you're able to, then you enjoy as much as possible for the rest of your life. And if you work hard, you study hard, then you will be able to have a nice home, nice children, nice wife, nice husband, many, many nice objects to bring into contact with your senses. And the more successful you are, the less of a limit there will be in terms of you being able to unite your senses with objects of satisfaction. And that is described as successful life. And that is all people know, and there is basically no other option given to anyone in this world. Even the various philosophies, they all center around this idea. How to bring about sense gratification. If not personal sense gratification, then extended sense gratification, which, as Prabhupada mentions, is related to the extensions of our very self. Others, other bodies nearby, other persons' senses. But not everyone's senses, because there is always preference and favoritism. So it will be my senses, my children's senses, my wife's senses, the senses of my family, maybe my company, maybe the country at most, but not much more than that. So that is the only option that materialistic life gives us. And even if someone in the course of their materialistic life stumbles across a certain path of religious practice, we can very easily see that the vast majority of religious practices are simply geared towards taking someone towards a heavenly lifestyle, more enjoyment, perhaps a little bit of austerity now, practicing certain rituals, practicing certain behavior, but ultimately the aim is to enjoy in the heavens. And different cultures have different versions of the enjoyment that you will get. The principle is exactly the same. Somehow I want to enjoy my senses. So therefore Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur spoke against these sub-religious principles, whereby one confuses pure spiritual service with something temporary, something maybe more mode of goodness, something slightly more elevated than the norm. When Prabhupada came to the West in his song, in his prayers that he wrote on board the Jaladuta, he stated that in the West, people are overcome by the modes of passion and ignorance. How will I ever be able to deliver them from this? How can I ever help them rise above this? That was his prayer, that was his lamentation, that he felt himself not equipped to do this. But then if we understand it in another way, that actually just bringing persons to the mode of goodness also does not constitute the complete picture. Because when one comes to the mode of goodness, they might adopt a more refined lifestyle. They might choose fine wines instead of cheap wines. They might choose nice country air, clean water, beautiful scenery, lakes with lilies and lotuses and clear waters, as we hear many descriptions in the Bhagavatam. there's still a spirit of enjoyment, if that is their only goal. They may have given up degraded music, and instead they may listen to classical music. Just more refined version, but still of no consequence ultimately. Because as we describe sometimes, our stay in this world is compared to a stay in a prison. And if in the old days the prisoner would be tied up with a big chain, maybe to a ball or something like that, to the wall or to the door or something. And a low-class prison may have iron chains. But a very refined mode of goodness prison might give you a gold chain. But does it make any difference to you? If you're tied up with an iron chain or a gold chain, you're still tied up. Your freedom is still taken away. You still cannot exhibit your true nature, your true desires. So ultimately there is no benefit. Now this is Maya. This is Maya's task. To convince us that the choices and activities we have made in life are actually things that make us happy. All the while people are suffering, but they are convincing themselves that they are happy. So our acharyas always sing these wonderful songs, Kacha Habu Dubu Bai, that a person is drowning in the ocean of material life. And every so often as the waves move onwards, the person comes up, takes a quick breath of air, and then back down again. Quick breath of air, then back down again. The struggle continues. And while you have that clear, crisp air to breathe for a few seconds, you think this is happiness. And this is the illusion that the entire world is laboring under. Prabhupada explains that this entire construction of civilization, which is based upon ugra karma, causes unlimited difficulties and miseries for everyone. And a little bit of token enjoyment, bringing the senses into contact with a satisfactory object, that constitutes happiness. But people have no idea. They have no idea what real happiness is. They have no idea what the param drishva is, the higher taste. And therefore the International Society for Krishna Consciousness exists to give people a little taste of what is possible. Initially, and it's probably your experience, if you discuss the concept of giving up eating meat with certain people, they will become very scared, very frightened, and very aggressive also. Because they simply do not know how it is possible to survive without it. All the vegetables they have eaten in their life have maybe all been cooked in a very boring way, tasteless, austerity, maybe forced down their throats by their parents. They don't actually understand how it's possible to live a healthy and happy life on simple, wholesome, delicious foodstuffs. So the devotees invite them to a love feast or to a program in the temple. They distribute prasadam in the streets maybe, in functions, in festivals. And people taste it. And they think, wow, this is amazing. I've never tasted this before. And they're hooked. And their eyes are opened for those moments. Their eyes are opened. That there is a new world that is possible. So this is something that devotees do. Because devotees are regularly in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they have a glimpse of the spiritual world. They have a glimpse of the beauty of the Lord, the nectar of devotional service, the joy of having the Lord present with you through all your difficulties. Because no one can really deny that there are difficulties in this world. They come to us. They come to us. But the devotees also know one secret, that just as the difficulties come, happiness also comes. So therefore Prahlad Maharaj says that Sukham Aindriyakam Daitya Deha Yogena Dehina Sarvatra Labhyate Daiva Yatha Dukkham Ayatnata. Sukham, happiness, comes automatically without endeavor, just as surely as misery comes without one asking for it. When we wake up in the day, in the morning, we don't think to ourselves, okay, today I would like to be miserable. None of us makes a plan for this. We don't have a timetable with tasks. Today I want to be miserable. But along the way, practically every hour, some misery or other comes to us. Either through others, either through our own mind, or through the different arrangements of nature, the different three distresses, the kleshas that we have, Adidevik, Adibautik, Adhyatmik. This comes to us uninvited. But what the great devotees like Prahlad Maharaj open our eyes to is the concept that happiness also comes. So even if we don't make plans for a day full of happiness, that happiness will also be there. And what devotees know is that real happiness, satisfaction, peace of mind, contentment is found in the service of the Lord. It's found when we are actually connected to the Lord's lotus feet. Whatever miseries we experience, they are addressed, they are massaged, they are exercised in the context of the Lord's lotus feet. So therefore a devotee actually has no fear, because they are very intelligent. Prabhupada says, how can an unintelligent person become a devotee of the Lord, or go back to Godhead? Devotees are actually the most intelligent. The great demoniac forces in the world will proclaim that you need to be knowledgeable in this branch of science or that branch, you need to be a technical expert, you need to know this, that, you need to have financial expertise, how to manipulate the markets, you need to have a whole spectrum of expertise, industrial knowledge that will allow you to generate more and more and be happy. This is an illusion, because happiness has nothing to do with that. Some of those activities will produce certain results. They might produce wealth, they might produce certain objects for enjoyment. But the happiness you derive is a different concept. Isn't everyone has the experience? Sometimes you have a very desirable object, but it gives you no happiness. I think everyone can experience this when there is a particularly tasty item. But if the stomach is full, the tasty item doesn't have as much appeal, isn't it? It's a fact. After you've had 3 pizzas, if someone gives you another one, you're thinking, oh my God, that's enough. The same object, the object has not changed. What has changed? Our condition has changed. The mentality has changed, maybe the physical senses have changed, that now give a different impulse to the mentality. So the happiness and distress that we derive is distinct from the objects and the connection with their senses. There is another layer of processing involved. And the biggest component of that processing is the mind. The mind and of course the intelligence. So when a devotee tries to dovetail their intelligence to the instructions of the Supreme Lord, they receive the highest intelligence. And they make decisions in their life which are very intelligent. They make choices which the materialists cannot understand. But they make choices which bring them actually happiness, day after day, year after year. In fact, devotees sometimes do not even want this happiness. In this verse it speaks about the desire to give up all our typical sources of happiness. And in this world, if you ask any person, the home, the wife, the children, relatives, riches, these are sources of happiness. But a devotee is prepared to give those up. And Queen Kunti is perhaps one of the best examples of this. When she says, Janma Aishwarya Shruta Shri Beredamana Madapuma Nevarhatya Vidatum Vaitvam Kinchana Gochara, that a person who is progressing on the path of Janma Aishwarya Shruta Shri Ber cannot approach you with sincere feeling. Vipada Santuta Shashvat Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru Bhavato Darshanam Yatsya Tat Apunar Bhava Darshanam. Let these calamities come. Here is a person who is inviting calamities. We don't like calamities. A little calamity comes, a storm comes, something undesirable comes. We try to avoid it. Queen Kunti is saying, let these calamities come again and again. Because my experience is that whenever these calamities come, you are always present. And that is the biggest success. Because you are always present, we have no further fear. no further distress, no further concern, the situation could be very distressful. But the devotee's consciousness is at the lotus feet of Krishna. And therefore they experience a special protection from the Lord. The Lord protected Gajendra. He protected Draupadi. He protected Prahlad Maharaj. For the sincere devotees, the Lord always protects. So a devotee knows the Lord is my protector, and therefore he doesn't need to make so many arrangements for his own material comfort and improvement. Yet still this problem remains, that we are advised here to give up homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives. But the majority of the time, we do the opposite, even as devotees, right? Devotees, the biggest ashram would be the Grihastha ashram. In the Grihastha ashram, one has a wife, Griha, Kshetra, Sutta, Apta, Vitta. These are standard items which come along with that particular ashram, that particular stage of life. So, how can we overcome this? How can we rationalize these 2 points of view? Can we hear some thoughts? How can we adjust these points that we're supposed to give these up? Yet there is an entire ashram which appears to facilitate them also. Anyone have any little idea?
This ashram is to help you have the desire by the end of it to give it up.
The words of an experienced person with realization that after going through the ashram, the desire should be there to give it up. That is one way to look at it. So it's almost it's almost a way that it teaches you through the school of hard life, we say, the school of hard knocks. It's an English phrase like that. The best way to learn in life is to go through life and to receive all the attacks, and then after the end of that, you become molded very nicely. You become strong and you appreciate the philosophy. Is there another angle by which we can look at this also?
We learn how to pray to the Lord that He helps us to become detached, otherwise it's impossible.
Yes. It serves as an environment which inspires us to pray to the Lord. And we take shelter of Him, understanding that in terms of our own efforts, we will be attached and entangled. And it forces us to take shelter of the Supreme Lord and become detached. It's interesting actually, this mood of desiring detachment is present even in the great grihasthas in our Bhagavatam. There is no grihastha who ever prays, "Let me remain in household life." Actually, not a single one says that. I'll come to you in a second. Parikshit Maharaj, Yudhishthir Maharaj, all of them, they pray, "Let me not be entangled." That is their constant prayer. So that's an interesting angle. That the great Vaishnavas understand that it is a trap, it is a danger. And therefore they take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Even someone like Priyavrat Maharaj didn't even want to take the throne. In the 4th canto that story is given how he was supposed to become the ruler of the earth. But he said, "I don't want to do this because it will entangle me. And I cannot think of anything worse than that." In the end, it took the whole entourage of Brahma, Narad Muni and others, Swayambhuva Manu, to encourage him. No, actually, this is your service. You have to do this. And if you execute this correctly, because you are not doing this for your own entertainment, you will be protected. That is a special assurance and benediction that's given. Swayambhuva Manu, Kardama Muni. There are countless examples of persons in the Bhagavatam who felt very much afraid of the dangers of Griha, Kshetra, Sutta, Apta. So it is a genuine aspect. And if our prayer to the Lord is sincere, then He may act, He may empower. Prabhuji, what?
Yes, don't know if I am mistaken, but one of what you mentioned that instead of thinking about the detachment that we have, use it for the Lord, for the service of the Lord, for the devotion of the Lord. So we don't focus too much about how to detach, but we use the things that we have, whatever in the family, children, family, For the sense of the Lord, devotional.
Yes, this is a very nice perspective. This is another perspective for looking at this same topic. If we consider the objects around us, the persons, anything that gives us comfort, as an item for my own enjoyment, that is where the real problem comes. But if we look at everyone around us and we consider that they are actually not mine. They're not mine actually. They're Krishna's. Krishna says very clearly in the Gita, Aham bija pradapita. I am the seed-giving father of all living entities. So every single person, every single item, every single object around us, circumstance even, actually belongs to Krishna. He's the proprietor. Bhoktaram Vigatapasam. He's the proprietor, the enjoyer of everything. So if we consider that our family members, our home, our wealth, everything is actually his, and for some portion of time it is being placed into our custody to look after, to administer on his behalf, that gives a completely different perspective. It gives a different way to look at the whole scenario. Then, as Prabhuji says, you're not fighting it. You're not constantly fighting. As soon as you go home, you're not fighting, oh, why am I here? No, because the home now is no longer a Grihamedi environment. It is, as Prabhupada described, as a Grihastha environment, where the home, wealth, everything is used for the service of the Lord in a wonderful cooperative manner. And this is something that would be so beneficial for society at large to understand. Most people in society have removed Krishna from the picture entirely. They have adopted many items of enjoyment, and they're constantly expanding those. The more successful they are as a businessman, the more powerful they are in society. It is all about expanding the number of palaces they own, expanding the number of vehicles they have, expanding the number of companies, whatever it is. That's their life. But that is a life centered around personal enjoyment. But devotees know that whether they are wealthy, whether they are poor, Krishna is the real source of their treasure. He is the real wealth. His lotus feet can supply unlimited wealth. And just the nectar of being able to serve his lotus feet can actually satisfy us completely. Because the materialists are never satisfied with however much wealth they get. They constantly try to get more and more and more. Recently we celebrated the appearance of Lord Ramachandra, Ram Navami. And in the wonderful pastime of Lord Ram, there is of course Ravana. Ravana is present in that pastime. And he is a person who had captured everything. He had acquired all the wealth that was possible in the world. All riches, all women, he had everything. But he was not satisfied. So the senses of a greedy person can never be satisfied. So one has to move away from the idea that satisfying the senses will ever be satisfactory. Sometimes I like to ask people, how long have you been trying to satisfy your senses? If I ask you, how long have you been trying to satisfy your senses? What would you say?
In birth?
Prabhuji?
Since the beginning of the universe, maybe?
Prabhuji, since the beginning of the universe? Krishna Priya has only been doing it since birth? Myself, definitely, long time ago. At least in this life, we can all say it is from our birth, right? But we also know philosophically that the sequence by which we take birth after birth, life after life, is that we have practiced this for lifetimes before. And then the question that we can ask is, have any of us felt satisfied? Have we said, now, okay, I have spent 30 years, 40 years, 50 years looking for sense gratification and receiving it also, and now I'm peaceful. Soon it will come. Can anyone actually say, now I am peaceful? Or does anyone actually ever say this in life? They never do. It's chewing the chewed again and again, and it never satisfies. So why do we keep this illusion going? That we have been doing something life after life, year after year, month after month, and it did not achieve the result that we desired. So why do we have an illusion that if we keep trying for this again, that we will get it, maybe in the future, maybe next year, maybe when I just collect my next €1,000,000, maybe after that point I will be able to finish my life nicely, tie up all the arrangements, make all the facilities, clean it all up, and I will simply sit in a cottage next to Gopaswami Prabhu and I will be peaceful. That is people's idea, isn't it? That is people's idea. But that's where the illusion is. Because you will never get to that stage if your hankering, if your senses have never been given an alternative path away from additional objects. They will never come to a stage where they are satisfied and enough is enough. That is the illusion that people are laboring under and are entangled in. Actually, to be satisfied requires us to do it now, to take shelter of the Supreme Lord, to accept His lotus feet, which are actually the biggest treasure, and they are accessible right now. They are not dependent on any change of our circumstance. Who knows, if we look around the world, when we see that people have so much facility, the last thing on their mind is the lotus feet of Krishna. They don't have a chance to be here in Krishna's presence, to dance in front of Him, to sing in front of Him, to eat His remnants. They don't have those chances. We say in the UK, we joke sometimes, we say even the Queen of England doesn't get this opulent Mahaprasad that we get every day. She doesn't have it. And she has potentially access to everything. This is actually the real treasure. But sometimes we think, I need to acquire this, I need to do this, I need to make this arrangement, that arrangement. What typically happens, and certainly it's my observation, that when a devotee goes down this direction, and if they get that opulence, their connection with Krishna decreases. Almost exclusively I have seen it. The person advances materially, Janma, Aishwarya, Shruta, Shrivir, whichever one of those it is, then they stop coming to the temple. They stop serving in the temple. Their consciousness changes. They stop inviting the devotees to their homes. It changes. There's never been a situation where someone moves upwards materially and their devotion increases. It might happen in a few cases, it's possible, but my observation is more than 95% of the time it does not happen. So it is simply an illusion. But Prabhupada is giving us the real technique for getting out of this Durga, which means prison. It is to recognize that we've been following something that has not produced results again and again. And therefore to take that very seriously and to realize that there is something else that is the source of our happiness. Ram means the reservoir of pleasure, right? Balaram is the strength, the source of all pleasure, Lord Ramachandra. This is how we refer to the Mahamantra, one explanation given by Prabhupada. Oh Lord, oh energy of the Lord, oh energy of Krishna, please engage me in your blissful, loving, devotional service. And we understand that He is the source of the ocean of pleasure. And when we chant His names, we have access to that. Our senses are satisfied. They're like the serpents, that the fangs are cut off. This is the power of the objects of the Lord. This example of Ambarish Maharaj actually illustrates this, because later on he will describe how he uses his feet for walking to the temple, his hands for cleansing the temple of the Lord, how he engages every single one of his senses. He doesn't deny the senses. He doesn't deny anything. He simply uses them and engages them somehow in the service of the Lord. And that brings him complete satisfaction. So in a devotee's life, they have simultaneously this balance. They have the idea that all of the things around me are distractions. And even the advanced devotees think like this, and I mentioned Yudhishthira Maharaj and many others. Home, wife, griha, kshetra, sutta, apta, viter, they're all distractions from the spirit, from Krishna. And so we should not deny this also. This is a fact. This is the first principle to bear in mind. That these objects can all be distractions, and frequently are in our conditioned state. That's the first reality. The second reality is that these do not need to remain objects for our sense enjoyment. We can immediately move to a platform whereby everything around us is Krishna's property. That's a state of change of consciousness that needs to take place in our mind. It is Krishna's property, and according to His will, His mercy, He's given it to us. Then maybe according to our karma, we have received it in this life. Karmana deva netrena jantur deho papate. We each get a different body, a different level of wealth, family, according to our karma. And it belongs to Him. He's the proprietor, He's the enjoyer. And if I acknowledge that and offer everything to Him, and use everything in His service, then He's satisfied and there's no question of entanglement. Now there's another aspect also. It is that a devotee has no other shelter other than the Lord. A pure devotee has nowhere else to turn except for the Lord. They only turn to the Lord. And therefore, we understand that when a devotee has certain needs, maybe material needs, there are different lessons given as to how those should be satisfied. When there are genuine material needs, and of course devotees will all go through phases when they need wealth, they need facility, they need maybe even food if they're poverty-stricken or something like this, in different circumstances. If you're in a war zone perhaps, the basics may be completely difficult to obtain. Well, there is a recommendation. Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. That whether one is full of all desires, whether one is full of all material desires, whether one has no desires, or whether one desires liberation, one should still take shelter and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Tivrena bhakti means very strong, staunch devotional service. Never in the Bhagavatam or never in the lives of the devotees do we hear that if we have a difficulty in life, that we should attempt to independently satisfy it. Independently I will remove myself from devotional service for some time. I will maybe work outside, I will go into some environment, I will do something. Then once everything is fixed up, I will come back to Krishna's world. There's never a recommendation like that. Nowhere in the Bhagavatam has anyone ever done that. Nor in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We have so many examples of persons like Kolavecha Sridhar, Srivas Thakur. They had such faith. He'd say he would clap 3 times, and if whatever he wanted wasn't supplied, he said, I will jump in the Ganga. That is the faith that Srivas Thakur, wasn't it? Srivas Thakur had in the mercy of the Lord. I will clap 3 times, and whatever I need will be satisfied, will be immediately supplied. Well, actually, our maintenance is the Lord's problem. Name bhakta pranashyati. He's already declared this. The maintenance of my devotee is my problem, he says. So leave it to him. The Lord has already taken that job description. He happily takes that job description. My devotee is completely under my shelter. Aham bhakta. It's this set of verses, in these 5 or 6 verses in this sequence are amazing. Yasva tantra ivatvicha sadhuvir krastaridayam bhakter bhakta janapriya. As Prabhuji mentioned yesterday, the devotee knows me only in my heart. Sadhavo hridayam mahyam sadhunam hridayam tvaham madanyatena jananti naham tebhyo managapi. The devotee knows only me. He's in my heart always, and I am only ever in his heart. Therefore I know no one other than him. When you have that relationship with the Supreme Lord, there really is nothing to fear. Yet sometimes, and there's a little spicy aspect to this purport as well. Little spice is there as well. that if somehow we neglect to turn to the Lord, you know, if we need something, if we neglect to turn to Him for the fulfillment of our desires, and instead we go down a path of simultaneous facilitation of our enjoyment and simultaneous devotional service, well, it's a bit severe what the Lord does. He says, I take it away. He says, for such a devotee, if someone has a habit or attraction for the Lord, but at the same time is attached to home, wife, children, etc., what he says is, I make a special arrangement to take away the objects of false attachment. So that's the spicy aspect. If the Lord sees that here is my devotee, he's very, very sincere, he has the right mentality, he has surrendered to me with the right motivations, but somehow he has not quite given up this backup plan he has for himself. He has not quite given up this idea that there are a few other things that he still has to depend upon. Then I will take them away. And that will be my mercy to him. For a materialist, the Lord generally doesn't really bother like that. He leaves those interactions to Maya, to the material nature. And she removes very viciously sometimes, in very traumatic ways. That's her job for the karmis. For the devotees, the Lord may externally seem to be doing the same. Some calamity may take place, maybe some health calamity, maybe wealth is lost, maybe something difficult happens to a devotee. But the devotee's thinking doesn't waver. The devotee has a different conclusion from that same occurrence. The devotee thinks, my Lord was so kind, and he knew that I was getting increasingly entangled in this mess. And therefore he has saved me the difficulty by removing this mess, or by giving me now this difficulty with which I cannot do anything other than surrender to him. So this is why we actually spend time studying, learning, practicing devotional service, so that when these difficulties come, instead of coming before the Lord and challenging him, dear Lord, why have you done this to me? Why are you so cruel? Why are you so heartless? We can actually see a different perspective, but we need to have faith in the Lord's protection for that. And if we don't spend every day taking shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, how will you have faith? If the Lord is a distant object somewhere far away, that he's not really there for you, then how will you actually turn to him when the time comes? He won't be your source of shelter. But if every day we are taking shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, and he's the natural object, the natural person to whom our consciousness runs, when it runs to him, we're saved. So this is a very interesting purport. It has these elements which are shocking to materialists. It has both an encouragement for the devotees, but also a warning. Warning is also there. And in this set of planets that we inhabit, we need that spicy aspect as well. Because sadly we have a conditioning that means that when we are in a happy situation, when things are going well, we have a tendency to forget the Lord. We have a tendency not to come closer to the Lord, but to forget him. So therefore this part is there. And as Prabhupada said, I lost everything at a certain point. I gave up my wife when she sold my Bhagavad Gita for tea. Remember that pastime? That was the pastime. Prabhupada came home and his wife had sold his manuscript, Bhagavad Gita manuscript, for tea. And at that point Prabhupada made a determined stance that, okay, this environment is not suitable for my devotional progress. And that was one of the stages, the points that started his progress towards sannyas and then actually fulfilling his guru's order. And he also said, my business collapsed. Prabhupada said, my business collapsed. Family members cheated me. It all went wrong. And yes, these things happen. These things happen in devotees' lives. They happen in devotees' lives living today. His Holiness Bhakti Prabhu Maharaj tells a similar story as well. It's very, very well situated. And then somehow by Krishna's arrangement, lost it all. lost all the arrangements, lost all the facilities that were made for him. And because he was devotionally inclined, it impelled him with great force to Krishna. Never looked back. So these are the little assistances, the little helps that Krishna can give us. But we have to have the consciousness that we see it as Krishna's help. Otherwise we'll resent him. So I'll stop there. Maybe if there are any comments, corrections, questions. Yes, Prabhuji?
Speaking of when you're talking about sense gratifications, we devotees like to enjoy the prasadam. We enjoy our mouths to take the prasadam. See, another is a sense gratification also, maybe?
It can be.
So
It can be.
we avoid this, Prabhu.
Yes. Well, we have to know what to avoid and when. Now, when a new devotee joins, what do you say to them? You say to them, eat as much prasadam as you like. Have as much tasty prasadam, eat as much as you like, enjoy to your full satisfaction. And therefore Prabhupada in the early days, he kept this jar of gulab jamuns, right? Remember? If you read the pastimes, he kept a jar of gulab jamuns, and at any time the devotees could go and help themselves to a gulab jamun and eat it. And this was their higher taste, their source of pleasure, because they were giving up all these lower tastes which they were addicted to. So it is completely correct for a person at that stage to be eating to their full satisfaction, to be eating as much as possible and whatever. No real considerations required, but it must be prasadam. But now, as we all know, that you cannot keep up such a diet forever. You know, just as we get older, our bodies naturally say to us, okay, hold back a bit now. I cannot have yet another pizza. I've had 4 already, I cannot have another one. The body will tell you that. Then maybe as you practice devotional service, you will get the idea that, okay, if I overeat every evening, my morning program is decidedly poor. That may be an observation we could make. And so we might naturally withdraw. And so this is what Shastra, this is why we need a very mature approach to following what is in Shastra. Someone could read this verse and come to the conclusion that they should leave their wife, leave their home, walk away the next day. There have probably been many immature practitioners who've done this also. Cause great disturbance in society, great disturbance to others who are their well-wishers also. That's not the correct conclusion, nor is it the conclusion to remain in that forever. We need the right mood. For a brahmachari, they should take this very, very literally, this verse. That getting into a society of wife, children, home is a major distraction and will be the downfall for them. That is a very good angle for a brahmachari, a mood for them to adopt, and a sannyasi, and even a vanaprastha. But it's not the healthiest mood for a grihastha to live off. Rather, a grihastha is better to practice seeing that these are the property of the Lord. That is a better way. And so you can see in Vedic life, as the varna and ashram system goes, see, every person has a varna, and they transit through ashrams. According to their sort of capability, they'll transit through different ashrams. And at different phases, different levels of austerity are recommended. The brahmachari phase, which typically the 3 varnas will do, the brahmanas, the kshatriyas, vaishyas, that is recommended for them. They will practice austerity, subservience to the guru, regulating eating, definitely no wealth, menial service to the guru. That's the only description for a brahmachari. Brahmachari gurukule vasandantam guroritam acharandasavan nicho guru saurida. With great vow of friendship he lives in the ashram and engages in service to the guru. That's all there is. And as a grihastha, there is the job of supporting the entire Varanashram. It is that grihastha ashram alone that supports the entirety of the Varanashram. No one else is earning any money. That's the only ashram that does it. And the recommendation is different for them. The recommendation isn't no sex life, no enjoyment, no house, no home. Rather, all these things are present, but if they are done correctly, then Krishna says himself in the Gita, Kamosmi Bharatarshava, that I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles. So through that act itself, which is condemned for each of the other 3 ashrams, that can be an act of devotion if it is done for the Supreme Lord. In the Vanaprastha stage, one is supposed to be detaching from everything. They should be removing themselves from society. Eating should be reducing. So you can see at different stages of a person's life, there will be a different level of emphasis on these same principles and a different level of literal practice also. So we have to understand the progression as well as the general principle. Provision?
It's not much the Grihastha who are living opulently, because as far as we go in devotional service, we upgrade our consciousness, we receive honor, and for example, Renunciant in ISKCON receive much more things to deal with, and they have to engage them.
Yes.
It's paradoxal that the more you are renunciant, the more your shopping list is increasing, because you want to engage everything for Krishna. For example, Prabhupada will look at a building and he will say, this one is very great, it will be a great temple.
Yes. Yes, but it's all for Krishna, right? It's all for Krishna. As we become more advanced, we understand that whatever we possess is all for Krishna. But it is a fact that as we stay in this world, and the longer we stay, especially interacting in the karmi world, these influences come to us. And we should not pretend we're immune from them. They are there. And that's why there's an extra special need to have strong sadhana, to have strong dedication, to be in the association of the devotees. Because then when you're working with karmis whose entire life is the diametric opposite of what we want, that success they think is okay. I will switch on the news, I will listen to some Gramya Katha now, village talk, some Prajalpa, that will keep me entertained for a little while. Then I will go to work, I will hear more of the same, discussing this, discussing that. Now I think this is election season here in France at the moment, isn't it? Big political fighting going on, who's going to get the throne. And they welcome someone in, everyone's talking about it in the pubs and the bars and the restaurants. Who shall we have? And some don't care either, because they know that whoever comes there, they're welcomed for the first year. Then from the second year, everyone is throwing missiles at them. So no one is ever really happy, whatever happens. But these are objects for talk. Objects for talk, just Gramya Katha, just waste of time, And when a person is just engaged in this for their whole life, it's dangerous, because devotees can also be attracted to that. And sometimes devotees might even imagine to themselves that this is actually devotion, that I should be fully immersed in understanding the details of the intricacies of this political thing versus that. It's actually none of our business, really. If you're in a certain environment, we should be informed to a certain level so that we can actually speak meaningfully to people. After all, if you're distributing books in the streets and someone asks you about the election and you say, what election? They might think you devotees are living in the clouds. Is it real? You have to know something. But you don't need to know, each policy argument of this and that and the whole details of it. That's a complete waste of time. And this human life is so precious. So these are the dangers, and they are real dangers. So we can be alert to those. Whenever we're in contact, we have to be very conscious that we are prone to picking up bad association. And if we are not strong, that changes us. Rather than hoping it will change them, our good association will change them, this actually contaminates us. And that doesn't help anyone. We need to keep ourselves pure as much as possible. Any other questions or comments? Prabhuji, would you like to correct anything I said?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you. Chandra Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Oh, one question, Prabhuji, sorry.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the inspiring class. How to find the right balance in this being well informed and taking too much?
Yes. Again, the balance may be different according to what you're doing. If you're working, interacting outside with people, your balance may need to be a little higher towards being aware of the details. Prabhupada also kept himself informed sometimes. He would ask his disciples what is happening in the news. And so sometimes he writes in his purports. He says, in one place he says, now China has attacked India in a militaristic spirit. It's in one of the purports. And so Prabhupada is saying, but then he draws a philosophical conclusion from it. He says, both of them are fighting over land which is completely worthless. He says, what is the point? They're both fighting for land which is completely worthless. So Prabhupada was informed, and he made comments on different things going on in the world. So we should, in general, my recommendation would be to try to avoid it, just because our natural tendency is to acquire it. Right? It's the same principle as renunciation throughout the Bhagavatam. Most people do not need encouragement to acquire wealth, family, home, etc. So the Bhagavatam never encourages it. It happens naturally. No encouragement required. So therefore the devotees always speak about the dangers of it and renouncing it. So similarly, we will naturally be involved in the world anyway, just without encouragement. So I would say if we just put the emphasis on avoiding it, then somehow we'll get to the right balance. And at the end of the day, you can calculate for yourself. Today, did I spend 1 hour immersed in Gramya Katha? Did I spend 2 hours? Was it 3 or was it 4? It can easily be that much, even for devotees. It can easily be that much. And ultimately, we can try and reduce that quantity. Whatever it is for us, let's try and reduce it. And then fill our minds with proper subjects. Shrotavyadi Nirajendra Nranam Santi Sahasrasha, it is said. There are hundreds and thousands of subject matters for discussion in human society. These are the subjects for the Grihamedis. This is how Shukadev Goswami starts speaking to Parikshit Maharaj. So let's cut out these subjects. Cut out these subjects and be like the swans, swans which go to the nectar topics of Krishna. That's how we substitute it. Especially on Ekadashi. Yes. Is that okay?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Grantrat Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.